and I'm just plowing through this because
Okay.
it's almost gym time. All right, streaming. We'll wait for it. Always happens where it tells you that it's loading, but it's actually live. So then when you see the replay, that you like see yourself picking your nose and stuff, waiting.
God, that's embarrassing.
I know. I am an embarrassing human. All right, cool. We're live. Super excited. Welcome. So this is another member spotlight, and what we do is show the world that there are a billion different ways to grow your business, and talk to some of my friends, partners, members, clients, coaches, mentors about how they got to where they're at. And I like it to be a super organic conversation. So we have Dr. Gabby Lyon with us. I gave her zero context as to what we're going to be talking about. And some of you may have heard either me or Dan Nicholson talk about her before. She is my personal doctor and has a fantastic business, which is surprising because most technicians have a really hard time doing what you've done. And you don't advertise.
No.
Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I don't want to share the numbers. I'll let you share if you want. You do very, very well. And mostly remote now, right?
All remote.
All remote.
All remote.
Cool. So we're going to talk about how you ended up on these lists. You got top 20 women in business for 2020 and another one that was like top online companies. And when I say that in this group in particular, to this group of people, when I say that you've done that without any paid advertising, without any real sales training, without any objection busting, any, weird countdown sequences, all that internet marketing stuff.
It's because you stopped me.
Well,
you stopped me from that. Yeah.
You had done very well up to that point on your own. And I want to talk about a few things. One, we'll dive into who you are and what you do really quick. And then how you got into your practice, which I believe for a very long time was brick and mortar face-to-face for the most part. And then kind of how you...
2 years.
Yeah.
2 or 3
and
years.
then how you transitioned to remote and how you've gotten like your pretty much your capacity. Every time we talk, you're either on a wait list or close to a wait list. And again, without any Facebook advertising, without any Google advertising, without any real advertising effort. And I think it's super impressive. So I want to talk about what you're focusing on and how you're talking to your clients to create this insane word of mouth referral system with these. Your people are phenomenal. Like obviously you've introduced me to a lot of your people. And you keep a phenomenal circle, and it's all just part of the way that you operate. So that's kind of what we'll cover. Why don't you take a moment and just let us, one, who you are and what you do, and a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So my name is, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I have no idea what we're talking about, but now I kind of do. My name is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and I practice a concept of medicine that I founded called muscle-centric medicine. Spent a long time in training, and really my practice serves the leaders, innovators, mavericks, the people that change the world, that want to change the world. So I just help remove the physical obstacles for that. Yeah, pretty much.
That's fantastic. You're also it's funny, I just got a text message from Andy Frisella. I think it was one of his auto responder things.
Cool.
But also you do a lot of the first form videos, right?
I do. Yeah, I do all their education. So I have a practice that's no longer brick and mortar. It was. I had a practice in New York City. Everything is remote. I work with First Form, Andy Frisella, Sal Frisella, amazing group. I do all their education, help with product development. Work with
That's
Navy
fantastic.
SEALs, husband's a Navy SEAL, work with a lot of operators. I've introduced you, Nick, to quite a few who love you, about 3, I think. I think you're a great guy. We
got Dan Nicholson just popped on live, dropping comments.
Oh, cool.
Obviously, Dan and I, I'll say this, Dan and I talk about you all the time because you're one of those people that it's very rare that you can like look at somebody and be like, oh, I bet your ears itch, don't they? It's like, how the hell did you know that?
Yeah.
And the reason that's so important is those are the people that have the hardest time making money in their business. right? Because what you do, it's so intuitive. It's difficult to get other people to understand the value in what you do, and kind of the things you take for granted. I call the base knowledge disconnect.
Hmm.
The way I mean, obviously we talk all the time, but the way you talk to people, the way you explain things, I want to dive into that a little bit later, because we have in this group watching live, and the people that are going to get the transcript of this, that's typically where they fall brilliant. PhDs, doctors, CPAs, people that are so technically skilled, but they get in their own way. They have a very hard time with the face-to-face communication stuff. And Dan and I talk about you all the time because you do that so well. So
Thanks.
props for that. We'll kind of dive into all of that, but talk a little bit about how you got to where you're at.
Well, I love what you said about being able to have a translatable skill. I mean, I think you kind of roundabout said that. So it doesn't matter how amazing your skill set is if nobody can understand your message. And I spent years thinking about how I can take a competency and make it translatable. And by being able to be translatable, I think that allows for credibility. I spent 17 years training, did advanced training, did a fellowship, did all these things, but it wouldn't matter if when I'm talking to my patients or doing an interview, if nobody understands what I'm saying. So I really thought about how to organize concepts or a concept and then being able to diffuse that information. So
That's fantastic, and you do that so well.
you guys, I
So
paid him about $10 to say that.
yeah, paid endorsement. It's more than $10. So if you want endorsement, it's more than $10. So how did you get into your practice initially? Was it you're cash only now? Have you always been cash only? Like what got you into owning your own business, going from, hey, I want to be a doctor, I want to help people, to, hey, I'm actually going to be a business owner?
Right. So that's a really good question. First off, I spent a long time training. So I spent a long time building the competencies, the core competencies of a physician, then doing advanced training. So I think, part of it is I got really good at my craft and my skill. So when you're really good at putting forth the effort and execution, then you can kind of take that off the table. So you're always learning, always thinking. But I built a foundation so that I didn't feel overwhelmed when I went into practice. And I think if you've got physicians on this call or people that are in business, to really mastering that skill and then putting, my husband is a SEAL. He says, you never rise to an occasion. You always fall to your lowest level of training. And I think that's a really common theme in the SEAL teams. And that's what my husband and I talk a lot about. So I built that solid foundation. And I paid my dues. So I was married prior, and who I'm still really great friends with, Shane, myself, we're all great friends. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. So I spent a lot of time investing into that practice, which he owned. And I did a lot of targeted philanthropic activities. So I gave a lot of my time away. So initially, before I started doing really well and transitioning into owning my own business, I gave a lot away. And by giving a lot away, I built a reputation. So I worked at that for 2 years, really solid hours, 60 plus hours a week. And I think after you get to a point where you start to see, if you're employed, you start to see that there's issues, right? There's no freedom in being shackled, right? It's just not that way. So then I transitioned into my own practice, and that was initially brick and mortar and face-to-face, always cash pay, but I was working from a hourly basis model, which had limiting returns so that you were capped on the capacity of your labor. And then over the last 6 months, I transitioned out of that to package based.
What a great idea.
Yeah. Which part?
Transitioning to the packages.
Oh yeah, that was largely Nick's idea. And I've done exponentially well in that, knock on wood. And now I'm actually at the point where I am really limited. There's now a wait list for my capacity to see patients, which is awesome. By the way, we're in a flight zone here.
Sorry. Oh, you're fine. I can't hear anything if it's there.
Yeah.
So the question, and I'm really gonna, let you talk and then dig in on the things that I think will benefit the people listening the most. Um, so the thing I want to point out first is the idea of paying your dues and donating time, because a lot of the people I'm talking to, that I have talked to, a lot of people floating around, they spent 3 or 4 or 5 years now trying to market and sell their business, right? And they're making 4 or 5, maybe 10 grand a month, because they don't have the authority, they haven't built the trust, so on and so forth. And this whole time they've been told, don't do anything for free. I mean, these are 22-year-old, 25-year-old kids, right?
Did
You do anything
everything
for
for free.
free,
I
charge
Yeah,
for your time, yada yada yada. And that's where we're similar, you and I,
yeah.
is we both spend a lot of time with people.
And I still do it. I
Mhm.
still give my time.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. And that's so I
Yes, you
want to
do.
point
You're
that
very
out.
generous.
And it I can tell you, it has not been a limit to scale, not yet anyway.
Yeah.
So if you're getting started, you're making a sale here, making a sale there. I would implore you to spend as much time with people and hone your craft, because that is ultimately the next step, is how to get on a wait list without running ads and doing all this stuff, right? And from experience, because obviously you're my doctor, I can tell you it's because you do incredible work, and it's work that people want to talk about. I know you have like HIPAA stuff, so there's stuff you can't even talk about,
Yeah.
but you don't need to. So you don't need a wall of testimonials, because other people are talking about you. And I think it comes from the fact that you spend a lot of time with people in general, but also you're just really good at what you do. What do you think? Say your first handful of clients, you're all on your own. Your first handful of
Oh,
clients.
yeah.
What do you think it was, if you had a guess, that is the reason? But this is before you're where you're at now, because you have a hell of a reputation now. But when you first started, what was it that made people say, "Hey, you got to talk to this Dr. Lyon"?
Um, well, I think again it goes to the core competency, but I was always able to take outside the box concepts and you know and implement them. So the traditional thought in medicine is really to become a technician, which I think probably is the same in marketing, as you're taught these strategies. So you execute these strategies, but really anyone could do that. So if it was just as easy as A plus B equals C, then everyone would be phenomenal and everybody would be better. Um, and I found that not to be the case. So by questioning, you do a good foundation of Western medicine, but then by questioning the paradigm of thinking and realizing that there is an art to medicine, and that by being creative and flexible in your thinking, you can deliver great results. So I think at the end of the day, I delivered transformative results for people that have struggled, perhaps with fatigue or digestive issues or sleep issues or hormonal issues that they've been to 14 other doctors and couldn't get better. And I think that it was being able to deliver a transformation um, that was
Yeah,
unconventional.
there's something, I love that you use the word unconventional, because where I'm about to go with this, and I'll use people that we know, right? You have me, that I operate a certain way. It stood out when we first talked, especially when we first started talking about, working with my stuff. Then we have Dan Nicholson, who is or was on this call. I can't see right now. Um, you got me. Everybody says they do what I do. You got you, a whole bunch of doctors out there. You got like Dan Nicholson, just another accounting firm, right? But what you do that stands out is the same thing Dan does. Same thing I aspire to do, is that he calls it I learning versus T learning. Right? I learning being drilling down really hard in your industry. T learning just being, hey, look, we're going to pull concepts from other industries. We're going to look at what other people are doing. We're going to use the laws of biology to help us make better decisions in our accounting firm. Right? You do all those things, but the more important thing, and this stood out to me, um, like it was it was like the thing that stood out the most, is you took the time, and again, just tying it back to, this is what makes Dan so effective. It's what I aspire to do. Say, yeah, okay, cool. Because I'm like, hey, can you just like give me more stimulants that will work, right? And the answer was like, well, hold on, we got to talk, because what the hell are you trying to accomplish?
Right.
Right? It's that conversation that, like, well, okay, you're here and you want to be here. And there's a series of things we need to do to make sure that you get there. And I've never had a doctor or a physician have that conversation. You know, they
Mm,
take your blood, they look at it and they go, oh, that's out of range. Here's some medicine. You're the only physician I've talked to ever that has taken the time to say, okay, well, where are you right now? Let's look at your past history. Where were you 10 years ago? What were you doing? You know, you asked me, did you get hit in the head a lot? So obviously that something is
yeah,
makes
yeah.
it obvious I get hit in the head a lot. But it was this series of questions to really help understand how do we actually get you to where you want to be.
And keep you there and
Yeah,
keep you
and keep you
locked in,
there.
you know? Yeah.
And that's such a rare. If you asked me, hey, what do you think is the reason people want to talk about me all the time? For me, that's why I want to talk about you, because it's
Mm,
so important to me that as an expert, you understand where'd you come from, where are you now, and where do
yeah.
you really want to go.
Yeah. And I also think that that comes from a core fundamental caring, right? I think
Mhm.
that that, I would say that the business very, very early on in my career, it was about me. A decade ago, it was about me. And the more you practice and the less it's about you, I really feel the more successful you become because, you really shift the sense of caring and character to it's truly about the other person and what, even if that person never talks to you, or talks about you, how do you care for them so much that when the time that your uh, work with them is over, that they are in a much better place and with a clearer trajectory.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
think that I think that's really important.
So again, for people listening, and this is my opinion, is my personal preference, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Dr. Lyon on, and we'll do a follow up because we're gonna have a lot of people that have a lot of questions. Pay your dues,
A lot of do's, no
spend
shortcut.
a yep, no shortcuts, spend a lot of time with people, paid or otherwise,
Yeah.
right? And give a shit. Those three things, I promise, will get anybody that is actually good at what they do to $1 million run rate. So if you're not sitting around $1 million run rate, even $40,000 a month, $50,000 a month, creeping up, get better at what you do, spend more time with people, and make sure that you're coming from a place of giving a shit.
Yeah.
So those are the three things that I take away that I see over and over.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, you want to talk about going to 5 million, 10 million and above, then you get tactical but that's not business stuff, right? Like I think we have a ton of open conversations. You don't wake up every morning thinking about, okay, well, what is my marketing plan going to be, and how am I going to make more sales, and what are my Facebook ads going to say, right?
Which I don't run any of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And here you are sitting on a wait list, and you are not cheap,
no,
right?
no.
So let me check the questions here. I see comments coming in. So you recently moved to packages,
Yeah.
right? What would you say? So that was a pretty big jump. I mean, that was a pretty big leap forward. We had a
Mhm.
conversation about that. The two or three biggest jumps you've made in your career that are similar to that, where you look back and you say, "Oh, I wish I would have done that sooner." What are those two, three, or four things um, that you have done, or maybe you're about to do that you wish you would have done sooner?
So I would say the one thing is moving to packages, but I do feel that you have to be comfortable dedicating that time, right? So I know that I have this many hours already filled and I have to, right? So that time is dedicated. So with that being said, for the people listening who are thinking about that, having moved to packages was really helpful. I wasn't totally ready, so you can't actually wait till you're ready. You just kind of have to do it because it can't get worse than what you're already doing, which is not a great mind frame, but you might not be ready to execute and take the jump. But I did anyway. I would say the thing that I'm looking most to doing is really getting I mean, I'm writing a book, which that's puttering along, but getting some courses done. So I launched a course. It took really not a ton of time to create. a ton of time, 8+ hours. And that course did, I don't know, Nick, I don't even know what to compare it to, but it did pretty well with almost no advertising. Um, so I can only imagine what a targeted course would do. Uh, and then the other thing that I did that really moved the needle is I gave away a ton of time. It's very, um, I just gave away a ton of time. I did a lot of front end effort. So in the beginning, I gave a lot of lectures. I did a lot of podcasts. I I still answer all my emails. Um, I was very hands on. So I think that's all valuable.
Yeah, I'll just throw it out there for I don't know the numbers because there was the weird whatever deal you had worked out with your course, but we're talking about $30,000 plus with minimal marketing, and the reason I say that is there are people that have spent $40,000 on advertising and haven't even made 20 of it back with their
Mm.
course, and it just goes again. The illusion that spending time with people is somehow not scalable or not a good ROI. Hopefully, conversations like this and more that we have kind of uh, break that false belief because
Yeah.
it's 10, 20, $30,000 on a course that did not have any advertising behind it is that's what most people dream of.
Mm. See,
So,
Nick, you're so hard on me. I didn't even know that I'm doing well.
well, I can't tell you that.
Which is really funny. I think Nick brings up a really good point. That front end effort and spending time, I will still, I mean, now that I have a daughter, it's a little different, but I would still take calls after hours. And I know, of course, there's the boundary thing and you don't want to just be taking phone calls all the time, but always going above and beyond. And I always check myself. So if someone's texting me and needing advice or needing something, there's these moments where you're like, oh, fuck, I don't, really want to get on this phone call. It's 8 o'clock. I've been in clinic or whatever. But depending on the time and if it's, it really means a lot to people. And it's always, if you can do more, yes. People will tell you don't do anything for free. Don't spend your time. But if there's different kinds of bank accounts. There's the financial money bank account, and then there's the goodwill bank account. And I would say I have for a very long time prioritized the goodwill bank account. And I think that that is just as valuable, if not more valuable than the financial. I mean, you obviously have to do both, but it means something and it means something to people.
I think um, Facebook ads, and I pick on Facebook ads because the barrier of entry was so low that everybody in the world was doing them. But you got things like Facebook ads, you have things like the election cycle going on right now, and you
Right.
have things like COVID. Um, it's really difficult to appreciate sometimes, and this is just experience I'm trying to share with you guys. And I think Dr. Lyon has done very well throughout the time we've been in shelter in place. Um, if nothing else, that goodwill bank account, that relational bank account,
Yeah.
is the ultimate hedge or redundancy against the stuff we can't control. Right? Just having trust, authority, and goodwill
Yeah.
means Facebook goes away. It's not really that big of a deal. Uh, when COVID hits and people are uncertain and they don't know what to do and they start calling up their trusted advisors and say, "Hey, I'm scared. What do I do?" Uh, Having goodwill, having authority, having trust with those trusted advisors is the ultimate hedge against the stuff we can't control. So that's if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you've probably come close to doubling your income through
Oh
COVID.
yeah. Tripling. Let me see. Is that true? Doubling. Yeah. Doubling.
Yeah, on a trajectory to triple.
Yeah, as soon as I get my courses done. And it's not like, oh, hey, I'm doing all this. It's all about the financial aspect is not. I was just texting Nick earlier. It's about my core desire to make sure that my family is taken care of and also the people that I take care of, I want them to do really well. So it's not like this next gimmick. It's none of those things. I still take patients that don't pay me, again, because, I don't know. I feel like if you're not contributing in some way, then you're probably not doing the right thing.
And again, I'm just going to harp this because we could talk we probably do this 50 times over the next year, and there's so much gold in there, and I don't share it with you often. Sometimes I do, but like the people that I jive with the best, you've kind of accidentally built the business that a bunch of people want without setting out and saying, I'm going to make $1 million, right? It was never about making $1 million. It was about a bunch of other things. Hey, I'm going to help people.
It's all
And
about
then,
contribution. It was
yeah.
actually all about contribution.
And from that frame, which we've talked about, from that frame of contribution, you can still make a whole bunch of money. There comes a point where economically, in order for you to contribute greater, right, and have a bigger impact, you got to charge certain people more. And like, you can still come from a place of contribution and make a whole bunch of money, but it's a byproduct of the contribution, right? And then it becomes about the decisions you make and what you prioritize. And for some reason, there's a narrative that doing things from that place of being helpful or contributing means you're going to be poor forever.
That's so interesting. I didn't even realize that's actually the narrative that's being discussed, because that's truly the opposite. And I am telling you, I have the privilege to take care of some of the finest individuals on this planet. And yeah, I would definitely not be here if I had not put in a tremendous amount of hours that led to years for no pay, for not even the driver. Again, the driver, I think when the driver is you, it's much diminished. When the driver is contribution and actually doing for others, and I'm not talking about in a codependent way, but really like, man, these people are suffering. How can you transition the suffering? And like for Nick, I mean, I'll call him. I mean, I don't have many emergencies, but I was really upset about this one thing, and he took an hour of his time to just touch base with me. And it's so funny because I'm pregnant, right? So pregnant, you're emotional. Um, looking back, it was so ridiculous, Nick. By the way, you didn't tell me at that time what I was stressed about, moving this person who I cared about, whatever. I mean, she's a little bit of a tough cookie, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And you really were, I mean, looking back, I'm like, I cannot believe how silly I was about that. But you were there when I needed you, which was amazing.
Oh.
And you weren't like, oh my God, you're going to wake up tomorrow and go, I can't believe you thought about that, had that ridiculous conversation. That was ridiculous.
So yeah, but
yeah,
here's another thing, right? And again, just sharing with the people here, it wasn't ridiculous to you at the time.
No.
And that's, that's I suppose an empathy component, but it's just understanding that for anybody, that this is another big issue that people actually have is, and I think you do this really well with your people, at least when you're talking to me. People don't have the perspective that we have. They can't. Like, they wouldn't be hitting us up asking for help if they had our knowledge, perspective, objectivity. So that's another thing that you do really well that I want to share here is just the empathy, right? The understanding that like sometimes we like, no, I'm not saying this about you, but sometimes we just like, gosh, how does this person not know this?
He's totally saying that about me.
But at the same time, right? That's how we be helpful. We're helpful.
Right.
We're not helpful by saying you should know this, you idiot. We're helpful by saying, all right, let's talk about this real quick. Which is another thing that again, I know you don't live in this world. A lot of people have been conditioned to not do that. Like they're conditioned to say, hey, if you don't listen to me, you're an idiot, fix your mindset, end of story. And these are things people are doing trying to grow their business, is telling other people they're idiots.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I feel like a sheltered child.
I was too. So
I had no idea.
So now you're here, you're on trajectory to just about triple revenue during COVID, which has been fantastic. There's been a lot of reasons. I believe that a few tweaks, but mostly just the goodwill and the social capital that you have. What are the next one or two moves that you are going to make going into, to wrap up 2020 and going into 2021?
I'm going to have my first program done. Not a combined program, but my program that I think is going to be really, really beneficial. I'm doing that.
Which one?
Well, we
You have
changed
so
the name
many.
a million times. We changed the name. I think really the concept of the GHRP, the GHRH, GHR8. I'm just kidding. A program that really kind of teaches. This is actually not the traditional program. Maybe this program won't sell. Maybe no one will buy it. But the concept of getting people ready to work with me and understanding those core fundamentals that everybody needs to understand. So I'm not explaining it all the time, and it really has to do with the framework. Understanding your patient archetype, who you are, who the patient is. Because if you and Nick probably, I would say Nick, you do this all the time. You have to understand. Let me backtrack. I think one of the things that makes an exceptional physician is not being able to just diagnose. I think that makes a good physician, the diagnostics. I think what makes an exceptional physician is to see the patterns of individuals. And I think that if that can be translated to the consumer or the patient so that they can have self-awareness, then they are now operating from a framework of power as opposed to a framework of confusion and having these underlying operating systems that they're totally not aware of. So it's, getting ready for, it's allowing patients or people or consumers to get ready for any program that they embark upon, whether it's becoming my patient or some other program.
Basically, and I already know the answer to this, but I'm gonna frame it so everybody watching can have the aha moment. If we can sell a program that, one, it's cash flow positive, obviously that's one of the reasons, but it's also like an introductory into how to be a better client of yours.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've actually killed a lot of birds with one stone. And one, we have a scalable offer, something we can sell, something that everybody can use. But also the percentage of them that do come in for a higher level of support, in theory, will be indoctrinated, share a language, and know how to be really good clients, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
How's that? How's the process?
So it's slow because I've really been focusing on my book proposal, but the components of my book proposal are components of the program. So it's now just translating some of that stuff over, which I've already started building out. But I'm actually doing something different this time. And Nick, you inspired this, is I'm actually writing it all out. And maybe you're going to tell me I shouldn't be doing that. But I'm going to be writing it all out. So, because I haven't actually done something like this before. Everything I've always given is science. It's not the framework of the science, which is really the valuable part, just as valuable.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Anything? So real quick, anybody watching, and we'll continue this conversation over however many months, because I think as this evolves, you make, in my opinion, if you're willing, you make a phenomenal case study for people that are really good at what they do. And they're probably stuck back where you were when you were doing per hour. And just sharing what you're going through is incredibly helpful to a lot of people. It may seem strange to you because you're not in this to be like a business consultant or a business coach.
No, can I add one more thing that I think is really valuable?
Yeah, please.
I think that was really helpful is the person that runs my practice really believes in me. And that is non-purchasable. That loyalty is non-purchasable. He's watched me work with patients for 5 years. He deeply has seen the transformation. I think that is invaluable, because when he gets on the phone with people to interview them to see if they're suitable patients, he, number one, really cares, and number two, really believes in the mission.
Yep. That Peter?
Yeah. And I think that advocacy, which is entirely authentic. I mean, what if I got some jerk on the phone?
Mm-hmm.
Who's like, oh, you should come see Dr. Lyon, and this is how much it's going to cost. And, that wouldn't work. mean, it might.
I am a very strong believer for people like you. And I think I probably had a conversation similar with Dan Nicholson way back before we really knew each other. I have the conversation internally is there's certain scenarios where just plugging in a salesperson or plugging in an operator doesn't really make sense, because some brands and some offers and some, like what you do, there's such a strong buy-in from people that have either been, in your case, either worked under you, or even people that have been your patients would probably be great employees.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's
True.
Dan said Peter is awesome. So you get to pass it on to Peter.
Oh, good.
All right, let's do
He
this
really
real
likes
quick
Dan, by the
before
way.
we take off. I'm going to rattle off some questions. I'm going to, the goal here is always to be as valuable as possible.
Okay.
Put as much out there. Number one thing, speaking of Dan, number
Hi, Dan.
one most useful thing that you have either learned working with Dan or talking to Dan? I know that's out of left field, but
No, I think that proper planning is really important, and that there are people that do what I do in medicine in other areas of um, vocation. So that was, I'd never had that experience before, but when I met Dan and I started talking to him, I was like, holy crap, he does what I do in medicine, but in accounting and all these other things. And so that, I mean, just to know that there was other like-minded people, that I wasn't stuck, what I could only imagine people feel like in indoctrinated medicine, that there are people that think outside the box and synthesize things for the betterment of people.
I can tell you the
So,
number one question I get is, how do you do so many different things? And the
like,
answer is, I don't. I do the same thing.
hmm.
It's dressed a little bit differently, but it's the same framework, same principles, right? Biggest takeaway that you've gotten in our conversations together?
Oh gosh, that you can achieve and do anything, but it doesn't have to happen all at the same time. So there's a trajectory that has the potential to happen, that will happen, but it doesn't all have to happen. And also, you have to understand the framework for what you're building, right? It can't just be the leaky bucket. So, when I came to you, I was like, oh my God, Nick, you got to fix this. And he's like, wait, why are you're looking at the wrong thing, right? You're going to try to pull water out of the boat that already has holes in it. So I think it was being very strategic and kind of calming the urgency. I mean, I've learned a lot, but I think, when it comes to a translatable concept, that is.
It's probably the most important for somebody in business, is to understand, for lack of better language, I apologize. Your business is fucked up in a lot of places, always.
I
Right? I
was like,
said that
oh
to
my
you
God. Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
every business is fucked up in a lot of places. So we just have to be diligent about where we're focused. Third
Sorry,
question.
I'm in this like weird tent thing. It's
Oh,
an
you're all right.
umbrella, but I have a crazy child, if you can see her in the background.
I see her. I see her poking her head out every now and then.
Okay.
She's like full grown now.
Yeah.
She couldn't walk. She couldn't walk by herself when you guys came down. Now
Yeah,
she's
that's
running
right. Yeah,
around.
yeah. She started walking at 10 months. I think we brought her down maybe at, I don't know how old. I don't know how old she was.
She could stand, couldn't walk.
Now she's
Uh,
crazy. But anyway.
third, third and final question, and then we'll let you go. If somebody wants to, you have a great Instagram, but if somebody wants to follow you, what's the best place to just peep in on you?
I think Instagram is incredibly valuable if you are curious as to how my mind frame works. I have a YouTube, so I put out a YouTube every week, and then a great newsletter, which I curate and write. And they can sign up for that on my website at drgabriellelyon.com.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to let you run.
Well,
Thank you so much. Anybody watching, if there's a few people that I want to call out before we go, because I want you to tap in. I want you to pay attention. You even just watch from the sidelines what she's doing. If you are really, truly one of the best in the world at what you do, and you're frustrated because a bunch of idiots are out there making more money than you, just watch how Dr. Lyon is building her business. Two, if you have or had a brick and mortar that you thought previously maybe needed to be brick and mortar, I would watch a little bit about, again, how she's using Instagram and some of the decisions that are being made. And three, if you're a service provider, if you provide a service, I would go back, listen to this again, and really just think about how you could spend more time with people, how you can really focus on delivering better results. And then it's just a matter, and we talked about changing your prices and packages. Like once you figure out that part, once you get really good at what you do and you spend
Yeah.
time with people, you just make little tweaks to make sure that you're getting paid for an appropriate amount for what you're doing. So any of those three buckets, I strongly recommend that you stay tuned in, follow Dr. Lyon.
And one more thing, you have to
And one more
surround
thing,
yourself. You have to surround yourself with amazing people. Really having incredible people around you because it challenges you to think differently. I don't know. I just think that's really helpful. It gives you different insight.
I'll add another thing to that. We'll just keep going. We'll just keep adding one thing.
I just think that is important. I think
I
it's so
think
important.
no, I think you need to surround yourself with people. And I probably am a little on the extreme side, as Gabby here has
By the
experienced.
way, you guys, I hate that nickname, which he probably knows.
I did not know that, but now I do.
Oh my God, it's like a verb or an adjective. It's terrible.
As Dr. Lyon,
Or Gabrielle,
Gabrielle,
or even another swear word.
probably knows, when you surround yourself with a certain kind of person, you got to brace yourself. I 100% agree. You have to surround yourself with great people. You got to brace yourself, because they're not going to let you get away with bullshit.
No.
And you're surrounded by people like that. I'm surrounded by people like that. And you got to develop, little thick skin, and also the ability to dish it back. But that's a really powerful point, and I'm glad you brought it up.
They expect it back. So they expect it back, right?
Yep.
You would not be being a good friend if you were like, hey, Nick, you're doing great. You're drinking stimulants, but no problem. I mean, what a terrible friend I would be.
Totally cool. 6 cups of coffee before bed.
Right.
That's fine. No, I get tough love. She calls me an idiot, and we move on. So again, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah.
We'll get this replay up. It's the transcription will get dropped in the November-December direct mail letter. So if you're not a letter subscriber, obviously I'm going to drop the transcription there and put a whole bunch of bonuses. And thank you again. Let me end this share.
Thank you.
Let me end this recording.